Hold on, everyone. So, just wanted to record this kind of update on the all-time pools. I know that was pretty quick. Only two pools, two divisions, rather, in comparison to the classic teams. We will get back to posting them now. I just posted the last one for the all-time teams. It was the Magic and Raptors. We'll kind of go over the results of each um, game, what we're looking forward to, and then I'll even give you guys a little sneak peek at, well, not a sneak peek, I guess just like a little outlook at some of the scores and how the players are doing right now. And yeah, we'll go ahead and get started mainly. Let's see, we'll try the first one. So as of now, these are the standings for Division One or Pool One, whatever you want to call it. And right now, the Celtics are on top, right? So they're still undefeated. They haven't lost a game yet. They almost, well, it looked like they were gonna like have some competition with the Sixers. They were able to pull away at the last second there. If you haven't seen that video, check it out. But yeah, it looks like you guys really enjoyed the all-time teams first and foremost. The Pistons and Nets were pretty popular as well. So that was a good game. But yeah, the Pistons won that one, so that puts them at 5-5. The Nets still struggling at 2-7. They're still trying to find their lengths, but moving with that, the Lakers at 7-2 right now. They lost to the teams above them, right? As you can see, the Heat and the Celtics. So that's who they've lost to so far. So right now, pretty balanced as of right now. The Spurs lost to the Heat by three. So they were really trying to make things interesting there, but couldn't make it. Couldn't complete the win there. And most of these games were close, which is in this pool at least, most of the games were close. So that was cool to see. I guess I think the biggest blowout was the Lakers, right? The Timberwolves didn't really have much of a chance there. And then the Kings just couldn't. I don't know what it was. The Kings just kind of couldn't really get anything going. And the Wizards kind of were able to take that, which is surprising because the Kings so far have done monuments better than the Wizards have. So who knows? Maybe this is the beginning of a run for the Wizards. They do have the Timberwolves next, who have been struggling, so they could easily take that as well. So a lot of cool things to kind of look forward to for this bracket so far. This video is not going to be as like long per se as the classic teams. The classic teams we had a little bit more to cover, but with this one, it's not going to be as bad. But um, look at kind of like our outlook. The Pistons are going to be playing the 76ers. So then the first video that you see after the classic teams for basketball will be this game, the Pistons and 76ers. So that'll be something to look forward to. Kind of an outlook of that. Pistons are 5-5, Sixers 4-6. They're kind of one win column apart from each other. So just looking forward to that. Nets and Lakers. Um, don't really, I mean, the Lakers hopefully shouldn't have that big of a problem with this game. But I mean, we've seen some upsets, so the Nets could easily take that win. So we'll kind of see how that goes. Celtics and Heat, this will be a big game, right? So the Celtics 10-0, Heat 9-1. So that's gonna be a big one. If the Heat are able to win this game, they will move out to first place and they will have the tiebreaker over the Boston Celtics for first seed, right? Which will be pretty important for that. Timberwolves and Wizards, not really as important in the grand scheme of things, but maybe the Timberwolves can kind of look to get a win there. But the Wizards are really trying to move higher up into the rankings in the division. So we'll see who they go. Cavaliers, unfortunately for them, they are the worst team by record in the division so far. The Kings, however, I mean, we saw them struggle in this game, and then they lost to the Lakers the game before. So they've struggled the past two games. So, maybe the Cavaliers could take advantage of a struggling Kings team as of late. So we'll see. The Pacers, who've played great, honestly, they only lost by four to the Thunder. So they've played pretty good. And they have the Hornets, who are 2-7. So, may not be it depends on kind of how it goes, interesting or not. It is in Charlotte, so we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, the Pacers, I mean, they're one of the biggest what ifs, honestly. I mean, them and the Suns, which we'll go over the Suns um in the next pool. They're in the other division. But um the Pacers don't have players like Reggie Miller, right? So it's kind of like that what if they had Reggie Miller, how much better would they be? Which still 5-4 without him is still really good. You do have to give that to him there. The Pacers have played really good basketball, so it'll be pretty cool to see. But yeah, right now, Pacers trying to bounce back from that loss over the Thunder, but and then the Hornets coming out of their bye week, so they're gonna look to try and start strong, play hard, things like that. And then the Thunder and Nuggets, that will be interesting. The Thunder are 5-4, Nuggets 4-5. The Nuggets are an interesting team just because they'll have games where they're really good, and then they'll have games where they're very out of sync, right? See this game right here against the Wizards, right? It's very out of sync. And then when they were playing the Cavaliers, they were just on top of everything. So it just really depends on how things turn out. Um, but if Jokic is playing well, because that's also been a problem too. We'll look at that in the statistics and everything like that. That Jokic has kind of been on and off, hasn't really been, the 97 that he is rated in the on the all-time team. So, yeah, and then the Thunder are a pretty cohesive group. They have a lot of chemistry. So, they have a lot of good things going for them. But you'll kind of have to see how that goes. And then the Spurs have their bye week. Sucks they weren't able to get the win there for their sakes going into the bye. So they're going to have to really work on things. As then they'll play the Pacers out of their bye week, right? So that's the first pool is what we're looking at right now. If we go to the second one, so we'll see. So here are some of the games here. With this, the Bucks and Warriors, my file did get messed up, so I wasn't able to post that one. So I do apologize to my Bucks and Warriors fans if there are any out there that or if there's any Bucks and Warriors fans watching that have, that were waiting for this. They'll play next week. None of them have bye weeks. The Warriors will play the Magic, and the Bucks will play the Rockets. So that'll be cool to see. But overall, we'll look at these games so far. The Mavericks absolutely had their way with the Clippers. And the Clippers, they've been on and off. They haven't really been able to get too far ahead in games. Right now they're sitting at 6-4 though, so still solid record. All for all intents and purposes. But the Mavericks, I mean, big surprise, 7-2. Mavericks have been really good this year. That's been cohesive group with, I mean, just really good chemistry in team basketball. I mean, Luka Doncic and Dirk Nowitzki have been a good 1-2 punch, followed with, Mark Aguirre, Orlando Blackman. I know those names don't sound like crazy names, but and the players like Michael Finley, again, they don't sound like crazy names, but they've been playing really well as a group. So that's been really interesting and fun to see the Mavericks have a kind of cool cohesive group there. But um, on the next game, this game was really close. Now, it's this game, if you haven't watched it, it started off really boring, I'd say. But it did grow to be a um, a really good game, and it came down to the final basket. But the Grizzlies were able to hold out, and so they moved to 3-7. And the Suns, man, it's been rough for them to say the least. 0-10. They haven't won a game yet. So yeah, it's been rough for them. They haven't had their bye week yet. They get that in 2, 3 weeks. You could see that there. I guess who they play next? They play the Clippers next. So we'll see, how that goes. But then the Grizzlies at the Jazz. But good win for the Grizzlies. They moved to 3-7. The Pelicans and Knicks. This game was almost an upset. This game was almost an upset, but the Knicks were able to gather everything at the end. The Pelicans were, it almost seemed like the Pelicans were more ready to win than the Knicks were in this game, but the Pelicans did end up falling to the Knicks, so they didn't end up, losing to them. But the Knicks had to pull everything together. They had to get some stops here and there, and they ended up winning by two. But that put the Knicks in sole possession of first place in the division. So there you go. There you go with the Knicks. So they're doing their thing there, and then the Pelicans fall to 3-6. So unfortunately they weren't able to build off um some of their momentum that they've gained over the past couple of weeks. But yeah, and then the Bulls and Jazz. Now this game wasn't like totally important in the grand scheme of things, but um it does cement the Jazz as kind of a very interesting bottom team in this division, right? They haven't really been able to really get much going. They've really been able to score that much points. I mean, John Stockton and Karl Malone, that duo's been fine, but outside of that, Pete Maravich has been good, but there hasn't been many, you know, consistent scoring, I should say, for the Jazz. But the Bulls, they've been a surprise 4-6 team. You would think they'd be a lot better. Um, and I think a lot of that has to do with just their style of play, I guess. Um, Michael Jordan, while he does a lot of the scoring, they do rely on him for a lot of points, and that means a lot of missed shots half the time. So, you know, they may have to look outwards, but with this win, they were actually a little bit more cohesive. Derrick Rose was a lot better. Um, Scottie Pippen was doing overall things. Same with Artis Gilmore, who I think he had 9 blocks in this game. We'll see in the stats on my sheets there, but they played well against the Jazz. It was a hard fought win for the Bulls. And this next one, the Blazers and Rockets. This one was interesting. Again, the Rockets are one of those disappointing teams. They haven't really played as well as people thought they would, to be honest. Or at least I thought. I thought they'd be a lot better than 4-5 where they're at right now. But the Blazers have been a surprise. They're at 7-2, and they're right up there, with all these other teams. There's like a four. What is this? One, two, one, two, three, four. Like a five-way tie for second place. So I mean, it's very interesting. But um, yeah. So the Blazers played really well, especially with Damian Lillard. I mean, it's proven to be useful to have Damian Lillard, Clyde Drexler, Brandon Roy, and Bill Walton on the same team has proven to be lethal. So that's been an interesting starting lineup. Then they have Maurice Lucas at the power forward. So it's proven to be an effective starting lineup. So I have that there. Yes, unfortunately, we won't be able to see this game on the channel. Do apologize for that, but to be honest, it wasn't all that interesting in the grand scheme of things. The Warriors dominated the Bucks pretty much the entire way through. So the Warriors do move to that second spot with the point differentials, and the Bucks, who were at the second spot, slide all the way down to 5. So yeah, the Bucks just weren't able. They weren't on the same page a lot, and Wilt Chamberlain, like I mean, just Wilt Chamberlain himself, just dominated the Bucks. Like he dominated Kareem. Oscar Robertson couldn't get anything. Giannis, whenever he would go inside, couldn't get anything. Wilt Chamberlain was pretty much dominant the entire game. But yeah, so they move to 7-2 and push the Bucks down a little bit. But this one was the big surprise. Coming into this game with the Raptors and Magic, the Magic had the chance to tie for first place. They really had that chance. And I thought personally they were going to do it because the Raptors haven't really been they haven't been competitive as much. Now they did win a game against the Warriors, right? So a lot of these teams that are 7-2, like the Magic, one of their losses came from Toronto, and Warriors, one of their losses came from Toronto, right? So it's very interesting how that's working out. But um, yeah, the Raptors, they pretty much dominated the Magic. They went to Orlando and pretty much just it wasn't close throughout the entire game. If you guys want to check that out, feel free to check it out. I mean, it was a master class from, between Kawhi Leonard, Vince Carter, and DeMar DeRozan. And on paper, you look at those are three solid scorers that, you would think they'd have more than two wins. But, they've I think defense has proven to be a problem. Um, a lot of the bigs and stuff. They have Chris Bosh at center, which you wouldn't think would be the worst thing, because the Heat did that for a long time, but um he's proven to be difficult to work with on defense. Um, but in this game, didn't seem much of an issue because the Magic have both. I think they have Shaq at the power forward and Dwight Howard at center, and Kawhi Leonard and Chris Bosh did an amazing job at containing them enough for the other scorers on the Raptors to score. And Kyle Lowry, you'll see the stats on there. He was great. But yeah, I mean that's kind of what we're looking at so far for the teams. So I'll look at, let's see. So now looking ahead on this division here, Clippers and Suns will be the first game. Clippers just trying to bounce back um, after, getting blown out by the Mavericks. And the Suns, again, every game at this point for the Suns is just can they get their first win so they don't want to be stuck playing the first seed in the series, or not the first seed. The first seed will get a bye week, but they don't want to get stuck playing, the runner up. So they want to try and get some wins there, but they're really behind. And then the Mavericks and Knicks, this will be interesting because again, the Knicks have proven that they can be beaten. They have lost once. But other than that, I mean, they were pretty dominant in most of their other games that they played, but the Pelicans kind of exposed them a little bit, I think, saying that they can be beaten. We just weren't able to complete the job. So the Mavericks being at 7-2, maybe they're better equipped to come out there and beat the Knicks. It is in New York, so that is something that they're gonna have to worry about. But we'll see where that goes. The Grizzlies and Jazz, grand scheme of things, not all that important. But the Jazz are trying to not fall too far behind because that would suck for them. But that's what they're looking at right now. Um, the Pelicans and Trailblazers, again, the Pelicans have proven that they can make life difficult for the top seeds. And the Blazers just got to make sure that they're on their best game. That's just the reality of it. So we'll see where that goes. That's an interesting game to watch, though. And then see the Bucks and Rockets again. The Bucks just trying to bounce back. Really just didn't have it against the Warriors. And the Rockets, I mean, the Rockets again, just again, also they're trying to do the same thing pretty much, but the Bucks have had more success over the course of the season than the Rockets have. But the Rockets also aren't trying to fall too far behind under 500 because they're trying to stay in that median zone. But the Bulls are right there. I mean, the Bulls do have their bye week, so they're not necessarily going to be too much of a threat right now. But the Bulls are right there on the Rockets. And, with this next game, depending on who wins, got Raptors and Hawks. If the Hawks win, then, the Hawks could easily go up there. But the Raptors, again, they've been kind of been playing, the underdog this entire time. So they're going to try and take another underdog win here. They're not going to be an underdog by that much in comparison to the other teams they faced, but Hawks kind of coming off their bye week, so we'll see how prepared they are for that game. And then this game will be really important. Save the best for last. This will be probably the most important one, um, other than maybe the Mavericks and Knicks. The Magic and Warriors, that's going to be a big one. So whoever wins this game will kind of determine, who's going to be up there in this, this big tiebreaker. Eventually, this tiebreaker is going to have to get chopped up a little bit. So who's that going to be, right? So the Warriors and Magic, that'll be a good game for them, to kind of see who moves up there. Bucks got to take care of business against the Rockets, and um, yeah, Mavericks have a tough road, and the Blazers, just can't overthink it, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at. But that's the standings so far for them. Again, if you have any, if any of you guys have any, questions about anything, feel free to put it in the comment section. Let me know kind of what you're thinking. But yeah, that's what we have so far. I'll take a look at some of the statistics for us here. I was just finished recording the Magic stats. I have, so these are the mid-season averages. Obviously, the game they just played isn't factored into all this, so keep that in mind when I'm like looking through a bunch of these. But and then I put like team MVP for the all-time teams. I didn't do this for any other one. I just did it for the all-time teams, just because I thought it would be interesting to see who's like the best Magic player, who's the best Nets player, etc. Like you kind of get the idea. But um, yeah, I mean, right now the Magic are playing well. I mean, it's the reason why they're 7-2. Just in today's game, their defense was kind of shoddy. They weren't able to really do much on defense, but which is normally not the case for them. They're usually pretty good defensively just because they have a lot of size. At the basically 1 through 5, they have size. So it's been very interesting to see. Um, yeah, right now, Penny Hardaway doing his thing. Tracy McGrady was team MVP mid season because he's put up some great performances. He I think the leader today in points for this week's game was Dwight Howard though. And Dwight Howard though has kind of been up and down, right? I mean, there's been games where he's been really good and then games where he's not, right? So it just really depends there. We had a good game today. I'll start close to the beginning here, so we'll kind of look at it. 76ers, they haven't had their bye week yet, so that's why they're a little out here. But Allen Iverson so far, again, not counting this past week. This is just all the other games prior to that. He won team MVP. He averaged 29 a night. So this past game, will probably put him over 30 points a game. So looking good there. Julius Irving, Dr. J averaging a little over 21 a game. So he's kind of been an unsung hero for them, trying to really put this team together. Again, because Moses Malone, while he's not necessarily meant to be like the points guy, still 17 and 10 is still a great performance overall for Moses Malone. And Dolph Schayes has been an interesting one. I mean, his stats are largely padded from this big 43, 5, and 10 night that he had. Um, but I mean, the 27 points here, 20 points there, 21. Um, ever since this 21, 12, and 9, he almost had a triple double. Since that game, he really hasn't, these past 3 games, he really hasn't kind of reciprocated that success that he was starting with early in the year. But 76ers again, I think they're like 4-6 if I remember correctly. So they're trying to put that together. And then Joel Embiid, he doesn't start for them. Obviously Moses Malone starts, so that's where he has that 8 points, 5 rebounds average. So that's what we're looking at for the Sixers. The Bucks, taking it more into consideration here, I put Giannis at team MVP, obviously averaging 34, 8, 6, 1 steal and 2 blocks a game. That's your MVP there for the team. So Giannis has been doing his thing in this season so far. I mean, you look at his stats, right? Multiple games over 40 points. And he's had triple double, almost had triple doubles. He has one here, 45, 11, and 10, just masterclass, just doing his thing. Um, just because Kareem has kind of taken a back seat. So, which has been interesting. I wasn't expecting Kareem to take a back seat as far as point production. Now, I mean, almost 5 blocks a game ain't taking a back seat, right? So defensively, he hasn't been taking a back seat. He had a triple double in blocks here. He had 22, 12, and 10 blocks. So, I mean, when I say take a back seat, I'm taking like as far as point distribution, not necessarily, because if we're comparing it to his other counterpart in the classic teams area with the 71 Bucks, he's been doing everything. So got that there. Oscar Robertson averaging 22 and 10. So he's been doing pretty well as well. And he was one of the leading point scorers in their past game and their loss to the Warriors. So, just doing everything they can. I mean, Marquez Johnson does his thing here and there. Um, Sometimes he fades away a lot. I mean, this 2 point game, and then, kind of not doing all that well, but then he'll have 24-point nights, 24-point nights, so it really just kind of he's here and there a lot of times, but then they're getting some decent point distribution from other players just kind of depends really on the matchups. But yeah, the Bucks are at 7-2 right now, so they're doing pretty well. But the Bulls, who have been pretty shockingly not as good, to be honest. But again, not on Michael Jordan, who's averaging 37 points, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, almost 2 steals. Yeah, he's been, you know, what Michael Jordan usually does. So, um, but I mean, again, lots of point distribution for him. 50-point game. He's got multiple 40-point games. Scottie Pippen at 17. There'll be times where Scottie Pippen does take over a little bit. So, I mean, with this 32-point night that he had, Scottie Pippen pretty much took over. So, um, obviously for the Bulls, they would like for him to take over a little bit more. But that is kind of, here or there. Derrick Rose has been really good. 24 points. A little bit more rebounds there, but he has 9 assists and a steal a game. So he's been doing really well. Um, Dennis Rodman, again, not really there for points as much as he is for rebounds, assists, passing the ball, defense, things like that. But really, it's been that big three getting points. That's what it's been. So, I mean, it is what it is. That's their philosophy. A lot of their team is that anyway. They don't really have, I mean, Jimmy Butler has been there a couple times. But I mean, as of right now, a lot of their scorers, a lot of their players haven't really done much, to really contribute point wise. So it's had to go to Michael, Scotty, or Derrick Rose to really provide that. But Cavaliers, 1-8 Cavaliers. They've been interesting to say the least. Again, LeBron doing the best he can. I did put Kyrie though as the team MVP because Kyrie is going toe to toe with what LeBron's been doing. I mean, LeBron's been doing a lot of, what he does, a little bit of everything. I mean, just this past game against the Nuggets, 36, 7, and 14. That's, amazing. Kyrie, 28, 2, and 3. He's been kind of that spark plug, that scorer. But again, they're 1-8, so it's been kind of hard because they're not getting as much production from Mark Price or Brad Daugherty, things like that. So Zydrunas Ilgauskas, Kevin Love, players like that they would like to have more point production from. They're not really getting. So sucks for them, but yeah, I mean Mark Price 13, 1 and 7. His last game does help a little bit, like he was helping a lot more. But again, it just kind of seems like it's LeBron and Kyrie doing everything, and they're not really getting that much assistance after that. But that's kind of where we're at there for the Cavaliers. The Celtics, who again, the undefeated Celtics, 10-0. Um, yeah, I mean Larry Bird at 32 points a game. Um, he's been doing his thing, but I have John Havlicek as team MVP. He's been 34, almost 35 points a game, 4 rebounds, 7 assists, almost 2 steals. And then just this past game, he was at 42, 6, and 4 with the steals. So he's been really good for the Celtics, and he's been a big part of why they've been undefeated because obviously with Larry Bird and Bill Russell, they got Bob Cousy, they're going to have success with players like that, but they needed that one guy that was going to be that spark plug throughout the entire way. And Havlicek's been that for them. So, I mean, Havlicek's been doing a little bit of everything. So that's been cool to see for the Celtics, 10-0. And yeah, they got a big game ahead of them against Miami, so they're gonna be looking for that. But then you got Jason Tatum at the bottom. I wanted to point out Jason Tatum down here because he's been every once in a while he'll kind of come in and do a lot, like 31 points or 22 points. Like he'll just randomly kind of come in. But other than that, he's been mainly more of like a spark plug when they need it. Offensively, he's not really in the rotation that much, but if they need him, he's been there. So that's been interesting to see. And then Paul Pierce, just kind of here and there, just mainly more for the point support than anything else. But let's see, Clippers are next. Again, Kawhi Leonard has been really good. 38 points, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, almost 2 steals. Like he's been really good. He did get injured one game, but he came back and proceeded to score 35, 6, 9 assists. So he's been fine. Dropped a 54-point game. I know Clippers fans are kind of like, this is probably what we would have gotten had he's not always injured in real life, but yeah, I mean that's probably the case. He's been crazy good. Um, and big reason why the Clippers are 6-4. So that's been a big emphasis on that. Chris Paul's been really good. 18, 9, 1 steal. Kind of again, kind of what you expect. Blake Griffin averaging 22, 7, 3, almost a steal. He's been doing a lot of good things too. So yeah, I mean, just a lot of cool stuff for the Clippers. That's why they're 6-4. Because they've been, doing a lot of good stuff offensively. They've been really cohesive and they've really found as a team who are the scorers, who are the distributors, things like that. And really have set an identity for themselves, which is something that I think was hard for them because they started off like with Chris Paul at the point guard. I think they have Kawhi Leonard who's playing shooting guard right now. Elton Brand is playing small forward. Then they have Blake Griffin and Bob McAdoo at the front court, right? So on the kind of like a unorthodox team. But with that being said, though, Elton Brand has proven to be useful um, because they've kind of been able to move him around a lot. I mean, just this past game, he had 11, 10, 3 assists, 2 blocks, right? So he's still doing well with the rebound six. Like this, it's not subtracting with his rebounds or with his big man-esque duties, but um, they've been playing a lot bigger with Chris Paul at the point, and that's proven to be a pretty good strategy so far. So they're looking at to kind of improve off that. The Grizzlies, who just won, but they've been a little bit, haven't been playing all that well. Again, I think they're at like 2-7, right? So they're not playing that great by any means. But the Gasol brothers have been, they've kind of been living and dying by how the Gasol brothers are playing. And I mean, Pau Gasol has been as good as anybody. 33, 10, 4, steal, 2 blocks. He may be in the front runner for the division MVP. It's very possible that he might win, depending on how he keeps going. I mean, he just had a 48-point night. I mean, he's been unbelievable. Kind of hoping a little bit more from Mark. I was kind of hoping for a little bit more. But I mean, players like John Morant. John Morant's actually been playing pretty good. He's not getting lost out there. He's doing his thing and distributing the ball. I mean, him and Mike Conley are the 1 and 2. So they're like interchangeable. Mike Conley usually starts at point guard and John at the shooting guard, but they've been interchangeable. And they've also done the same strategy where they have 3 big men, but they have Zach Randolph at the small forward, and then they have, I think, Powell's at power forward and Mark's at center. So they've kind of been interchanging there. But it's proven useful. I mean, then they have Sharif Abdul-Rahim. He's been a good person off the bench. Tony Allen has been good defense. Shane Battier, Mike Bibby, and Jaren Jackson. And Jaren Jackson just kind of plays defense more or less, but there's been games where he's, got those 10 points there, but he's mainly there for the blocks and for the defense. But that's what the Grizzlies been doing so far. The Hawks just came out of their bye week, so nothing new to report. So all these scores are still current. All these scores here are current to their averages right now. Bob Pettit is the team MVP, 26 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, almost 2 blocks. But yeah, I mean the big thing to note for the Hawks is just I mean, they've been interesting because a lot of their players that have been playing good, like Cliff Hagan, he's not that popular of an NBA player, but I mean, man, if you look at his stats, he's been going crazy, and that's not, you're normally like, who is this guy? So it's cool. Dominique Wilkins has struggled a little bit to kind of find his rhythm, but this past game before their bye week, he played really well. So kind of hoping they can build off that. But yeah, they kind of want to limit the 7 points or the 9 points, or you know what I mean? It's kind of a little bad there. But Trae Young's been pretty good too. He had 37 points in the last game. The Fagan 42. Like, I mean, geez. Those are players that you wouldn't expect to be any good, but at least in the all-time setting, but they've proven their worth and they're sitting at 3-6 right now. So in the grand scheme of things, not out of it yet, especially if they can string up some good wins. So yeah, that's where they're at right now. If we take a look at the Miami Heat, so the Miami Heat are interesting. Um, so yeah, the Miami Heat, I gave the team MVP to Dwayne Wade just because he's averaging 27, 10 assists. Like he's averaging 10 assists. So Dwayne Wade's kind of been the man so far. LeBron's solid averages, 26, 5, and 7 assists. He's been solid. Lonzo Mourning averaging over 20 points, over 10 rebounds. Lonzo Mourning's been up like he had, you could have given it to Lonzo Mourning too. Tim Hardaway's also averaging over 20. They have four guys averaging over 20, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, I mean, it's been, good for them, really. For the Heat, 9-1 with yeah, 9-1. Yeah, I think that's what it is. So they've been doing well. And they got the Celtics. So this will be a team to kind of see who takes the win there, but that would be cool to see. The Hornets, Kemba right now is their team MVP. Um, yeah, I mean, not really much to put out there. I mean, again, Lonzo Mourning also has been good on the Hornets. Kemba Walker has been, about as good as any player in this bracket so far. Glenn Rice, he's been, either like if you look at the stat line, he's either there or he's kind of like behind a little bit. But no matter what though, Kemba Walker always seems to be up there. He did get injured. I think he got injured in like the third quarter or like at the end of the second quarter, and he already had 11 assists. So, you know, crazy to think about. But yeah, that's kind of where they're at right now. Um, for the Hornets, the Jazz, so far, the Jazz, I mean, they're at like 2-8. So again, there's a lot of things to be desired here. Karl Malone averaging 27, 8 and 3, kind of, not mediocre. It's good stats, but they need a little bit more. I mean, Pete Maravich is doing well too. Those two are kind of carrying the load so far. John Stockton just, not getting that many points. He's getting a lot of assists, obviously, because that's John Stockton, but he hasn't been getting a lot of the points that people would like. Adrian Dantley, who starts for them, is only averaging 10 a night. So I mean, you know, just a lot of not enough um point distribution from, all their big players. Mark Eaton as a starting center averaging 6 and 6 is it's not great. So um, just kind of trying to find themselves there, but that's what they're looking at. For the Jazz, again, not really much to look at for the Utah Jazz. The Kings have been interesting. Gave the team MVP to Mitch Richmond because he's been crazy good. I mean, he's been averaging 46 a night. I mean, again, like he very well might be the MVP because shoot, I mean, if he continues it, obviously. But I mean, Chris Webber's also been doing good too. Almost 21 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks a game. Like he's still been, you know, doing his thing there. But Mitch Richmond has been the point guy for the Kings. And they're 4-5 right now, but at one point they were up there with in the division. But I guess just kind of some of the points, like for Oscar Robertson, point did go down this past week. Jerry Lucas kind of been hit, like hasn't really done much. Um, so a lot of the points has gone to either Chris Webber or Mitch Richmond. Oscar Robertson's been great too. So, it just kind of depends there. DeMarcus Cousins is starting to heat up a little bit. So they're kind of hoping that he can, heat up for them in the long run. So that'll be good for them. But yeah, that's what we're looking at. And then the Knicks, first place in their division. Um, yeah, I mean, the team MVP went to Patrick Ewing because I mean, 27 and 12, 4 assists, 2 blocks. That's great stuff for them. Walt Frazier's also been really good. Carmelo Anthony averaging 30. I almost gave it to Melo, but I thought that Ewing averaging 27, 12, 4 assists, and 2 blocks. I thought that was deserving of the team MVP. I mean, Carmelo Anthony, yes, he's averaging 30, but that 3 rebounds, 2 assists, kind of going there. But that's not to take away from Carmelo Anthony, though. He's been really good. The big 45-point game. And then, I mean, just this past game, he was a little not as great, right? But and Patrick Ewing, and that's why I gave Patrick Ewing the MVP because it kind of seems like no matter what the game is, he's still pretty steady. So you got to give it to Ewing there. But again, the Knicks are 8-1. They've only lost once so far, so they've been doing good things there. But here are the Lakers. The Lakers team MVP goes to Kobe. He's averaging 32. Um, again, this is what happens with a team when they have so many good players that their stats go down because they're not, you know, getting that many scoring opportunities as much. But Kobe hasn't, it doesn't seem like Kobe's really had that problem. He's been doing good so far. Jerry West has been a close second place guy for them, like second scoring option. Jerry West has been doing good for them. Magic kind of being the distributor, and then I mean Shaq's been doing a little bit of everything. He's almost had a triple double a couple times. So he's done a little bit of everything. And then all these other players are kind of just complimenting. Like LeBron's kind of complimenting Elgin, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy. They're all kind of complimenting, and forming that cohesive group, which has been cool to see for them. But I mean, they've lost 2 games so far to the Heat and to the Celtics, right? So they're looking to kind of, make more of a move there. But that's what we're looking at for them. The Magic, who again, Magic just lost to the Raptors, but McGrady's been playing good so far, 28 points, six assists. You would probably want a little bit more rebounds from him, but he's been playing most of his work at the perimeter, both offense and defense, so he hasn't really been grabbing rebounds as much. And plus, most of the rebounds are going to Dwight Howard or Shaquille O'Neal. So they're doing good there. But Dwight Howard almost gave him MVP, but 22, 13, 2 assists, almost a steal, 2.5 blocks, right? So Penny Hardaway's also been playing good too, right? So they've been a really good group to look at. At 7-2, the Mavericks. Speaking of 7-2, Luka Doncic team MVP because he is averaging 50. Luka Doncic is averaging 50, 4 rebounds, 8 assists. Yeah, he's when you're averaging 50, that is wild. So I mean, it started with this 64-point game, then you got 74 and 12 assists, which I gotta say, 74 points with 5 rebounds and 12 assists is disgusting. That is really good. 54 points here, 42, 54, 50, and then he just scored 35, 2 rebounds, 4 assists. So yeah, it's been taking the load off a little bit from Dirk Nowitzki as he hasn't had to do as much there, but he's been getting his points where he's needed to. So it's good to have someone like Dirk Nowitzki, right? Because he's averaging 29 rebounds, 2 blocks, right? He's still been doing really well, but he doesn't have to be the number one guy, which is proven to be interesting, right? Because Mark Aguire's also been averaging over 20 points a game. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's been cool to see Luka kind of take over as like the focal point of the team. And they've been very cohesive running through Luka Doncic instead of running through Dirk Nowitzki, which you normally think it'd be running through Dirk Nowitzki, but they've decided to run through Luka, and they've been really successful at 7-2 because of that. But next, got the Nets. Durant is team MVP with 31 points a night, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, solid numbers from Durant. He's continued to do that. This one game where he averaged 6, he fouled out, I think, in like the second or third quarter. Like it was like he was getting a ton of fouls. So he just wasn't able to really play that much. But yeah. But I mean, other than that, right, he's been crazy good otherwise, averaging over 30. Jason Kidd has been the distributor, but he's been averaging, 21, 2, 12, 2.5 steals, so he's been good. But the Nets, fact of the matter is they are 2-7, so they haven't been getting a lot of distribution. Like Julius Erving hasn't been doing that much. He's been doing better as of late, but 13 points a night from the highest rated player in your team's not gonna happen, not gonna get done. Drazen Petrovic, you expect a little bit more from him, but he had a good night um, against the Pistons. But I mean, there's just times where he's just not there. So I mean, this game was good though with 15 assists. So he's been finding other ways to get involved. Oh, wait, no, that's Jason Kidd. I'm sorry. Yeah, 10 points. There's 9 points here. I really need to convert these to a table, so I'm not going to get confused at some of these. But and then James Harden's listed on their starting lineup, but he doesn't ever play. So I don't know. Yeah, they like when I was filling out the rosters, and this is 2K listing their rosters, and James Harden's on there. But then when you play in the game, he's not on there. So it's interesting. But yeah, and then Brook Lopez, he starts at center for them technically, but he's averaging 11-7 block a game, right? Nothing too crazy. He's nowhere near the first scoring option on the starting lineup, but yeah. And then they got people like Vince Carter and Kyrie Irving coming off the bench. Um, yeah, I mean, in theory, like you look at this team on paper, they should be doing really well, but I think mainly is they score a lot of points, but they can never keep it up consistently. And I think that's been a problem for them is that they just haven't been able to keep it up. So if they're able to find a way to keep up that consistent scoring while also having good defense, they'll win a lot more games. All right. And then the Nuggets. So looking at the Nuggets here, Melo is the team MVP, averaging 46, 4 and 5. He's been doing really well. Again, but this is what I'm saying here. Jokic, he's averaging 16, 8, 2 assists. Like he's not doing the same work that you would expect from him. So yeah, like I mean, this first game was abysmal, 6, 8, and 2. Like, I mean, and he's been doing good this stretch here, and then he'll have these stretch of games here where he's just bad. But this past game's 30 points, 15 rebounds, too. So, he's been doing well. But, it's been interesting to kind of see how that plays out. Um, Fat Lever's good here and there, but it's been mostly mellow because David Thompson also hasn't been doing that well, in all honesty. So that's proven to be a problem. And again, just they're an interesting 4 and 5 team. They really are. Um, you kind of wonder how they even get to 4 and 5, but it's because if Jokic is able to play good, like in the games that Jokic plays well, they win. Right? But in the games that, he's not playing well, then they end up losing because their production hasn't been where it needs to be, and Melo seems to be the only one really producing at a top level, right? So that's what we're looking at for the Nuggets. Only time will tell how they'll go. The Pacers, they've been pretty good at I think like 6 and 4, 5 and 4. I think it's 5 and 4. But yeah, Paul George has been the guy for them. 30 points a game, 2 rebounds, 7 assists. He's been doing really well for them. So that's been cool to see. Mel Daniels has been a nice compliment for them. Um, as he usually gets like 20 points, 10 rebound plus nights. So he's been doing really well. Um, and then yeah, I mean Freddie Lewis doing some good things, averaging a double double in assists. So he's been doing good. But yeah, mainly it's just been a Paul George led team, right? So it's been a Paul George led team, and they're just kind of taking as far as Paul George can take them. That's kind of what they're running with right now. But yeah, again, this is as you can see the roster, you can kind of see easily where Reggie Miller would fit in. Reggie Miller would fit in perfectly in with this team, and they're built literally they're built for Reggie Miller to come right in and and be that other option other than Paul George. But they're making do without him. So that's kind of where they're at right now. The Pelicans. Anthony Davis is the team MVP, averaging 39, 11, 3, 3.5 blocks. He's also, nobody really talks about him being the division MVP. He's been really good too. So Chris Paul, 20 points, 9 assists. He's also been doing well. I mean, this past game, it's been crazy good for Anthony Davis, right? 31, 15, 4 steals, 4 blocks. He's been, an absolute nightmare out there for teams to deal with. But the fact of the matter is, Pelicans simply just don't have the depth to compete with these other teams. So they fall behind a lot. But 3-6, not a bad record in compared to other teams in their division, right? So they've been doing pretty well so far for that intense purposes, but especially with what they have. They've been doing really good for what they have. So that's been cool to see. But that's the Pelicans there. The Pistons. Here are the Pistons. The MVP went to Joe Dumars, who's averaging almost 25 a night with 6 assists. Isaiah Thomas kind of been here and there, but I mean, when Isaiah Thomas is on, he's on. He just had a good night, 26, 12 assists, 2 steals. That'll up his average a little bit. Right now, his average is at 18.9 with 10 assists and almost a steal. So all those averages will go up. So he's been doing good. Grant Hill has been a nice spark plug in a lot of games for them. I mean, just this game, 27 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. He's been really good for them. Bob Lanier's been a nice center. Um, and then they have people like Dave DeBusschere, who's been doing good off the bench, like kind of off the bench work. Ben Wallace. I think Dave DeBusschere might actually start though. So like, he's kind of just been on and off there, but he does switch off with Ben Wallace. I think sometimes Ben Wallace starts and then sometimes DeBusschere starts. So I don't know. It's kind of been that there, but Ben Wallace has also been doing his thing too. But yeah, I mean the Pistons are at 5-5. Truthfully, they're like kind of in that midway point. They're like, perfect, split their games perfectly, but they're right there as far as with the other teams. So they should be able to compete just fine. The Raptors, they've been interesting. Kawhi Leonard winning team MVP with 25, 4 and 5. But I mean, honestly, him and Vince Carter have been the guys with DeRozan, Lowry, and Bosh. Their starting five has really played really well. That's what I don't like. Their starting five is not necessarily the problem. It's just you have occasionally you get the um like their bench sometimes won't play as well. And so that's where they kind of get that's where they run into problems, and that's why they're 2-7. But their starting lineup is as good as anybody's with Kyle Lowry at the point, DeMar at shooting guard, Vince Carter small forward. They do run Kawhi Leonard at power forward and Bosh at center, so they are a little bit more of a small ball style of play. But I mean, they do make it work when they make it work. So it's been cool to see. And Vince Carter played great against the Magic with 32 points, 4 rebounds, 7 assists. Kawhi Leonard ran into foul trouble, but he ended up with 26, 7 assists, 3 steals. And then DeRozan also had a 20-point night as well. So they've been doing good stuff. The Rockets, they've been a little bit disappointing, but James Harden's played well. Hakeem Olajuwon has also tended to play well. Um, and McGrady are averaging over 20. I just think where it really comes into plays, um, it sounds weird considering that they have a lot of centers, where they have Ralph Sampson, Yao Ming, Moses Malone, and Hakeem Olajuwon. But for whatever reason, they can't keep up with teams. Like their defense hasn't been up to par. And that's interesting, like it's not like you wouldn't think that, when you have Hakeem Olajuwon at power forward and Moses Malone at center, you would think that your defense would be one of the best, you know, but it's been hard to, really, they get that point that a lot of their points don't, you know, come in bunches a lot of times. Sometimes they'll go like minutes without scoring. And then a lot of it's running on Harden too. Sometimes Harden falls flat. And then you're in trouble, right? So they just have to find more consistency. I think they'll be fine otherwise. But yeah, they've been interesting. The Spurs, 7-3, they just lost to the Heat, but they've played well regardless. David Robinson as the MVP. He's averaging 34, 8, 3 assists, 1.5 steals, 4 blocks. He's been crazy good for them. Tim Duncan's kind of taking a back seat so that Robinson could really be the focal point in the front court. Tony Parker averaging over 20 with over 10 assists. George Gervin, Kawhi Leonard's almost at 20. Manu Ginobili, Louis Dampier at both at 10. So with the players averaging over 10 points a game is a very deep, right? I mean, we're seeing the first 7 players averaging over like at 10 or over 10 points a game, right? And that's key. Having those additional 2 players that come off the bench and provide that extra scoring, that's helped them a lot. So that's why they're at 7-3 because they've really been helped out a lot with their composition and their team composition, which is a Spurs specialties team composition. That's what wins them games. The Suns. So the Suns, I gave the team MVP to Walter Davis down here. He's been averaging 21, 2, 3. Again, you could have given it to Nash, could have given it to Amari Stoudemire, but to be honest, Steve Nash has had games like this, like the game he just played, where he's at 14 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists. Like that's just awful, right? For what he's the best player on the team. And then Walter Davis will have games right here, just this past game, 33 points, right? 3 steals. So that's why I gave him the MVP. While he's not always, that point production isn't always there, but when it is, he's there all the time and he's, always trying to help the team win. Amari Stoudemire and Steve Nash, you know, they've been there most of the time, but they're, sometimes missing just as much as Walter Davis is. Sean Marion, Devin Booker also providing some scoring. Tom Chambers there as well. I think it just comes down to they're not consistent and they will, when the Suns are not consistent, they end up going, like losing by a lot, right? Like they'll be right there with everybody else, then they'll be losing by a lot out of nowhere because they just can't seem to score. So it's been interesting to see, but that's kind of where we're at right now for the Phoenix Suns. We're almost done. Got about 5 teams left, but the Thunder, um, I didn't do their points. I didn't have time to do their points and stuff. I wanted to see. Yeah, I think the Thunder was the only one that I didn't do. But right now, Kevin Durant, based on the looks of it, looks like he's the MVP right now. Multiple games over 40. Gary Payton's been nice. They've had a backcourt of Gary Payton and Russell Westbrook. They can interchange them with point guard and shooting guard. So that's been cool to see. Russell Westbrook's also been crazy with some of his point production. So, and they've had Paul George, who's provided some nice points. Ray Allen has provided some nice points. And then that's why they're right up there at 5-4. Right. So they've been doing pretty good so far. Nothing really much to say other than that, but that's kind of where they're at. The Timberwolves, again, Kevin Garnett at team MVP. Kevin Love's not far behind him by any means. But obviously Kevin Garnett's done more on the defensive side of the ball than Kevin Love has done. Um, but yeah, Kevin Love been really good providing for points. Karl-Anthony Towns has been there occasionally. Sam Cassell's been their main distributor, but again, 2-7. They haven't really gotten that success as much. Their players just, again, sometimes they just fall behind. And that's just the way it goes sometimes, but that's what they have for the Timberwolves. Kevin Garnett, Kevin Love, been a really good front court for them. So, and then the Blazers, they've been really good at 7-2. They've been kind of a dark horse, and that starts with Damian Lillard, who's averaging 48 a night. He just dropped 55 with 12 assists. He's been the guy for them, right? He's been really good. Clyde Drexler, a little under 20 points, but I mean, he's still been a nice second fiddle to Damian Lillard, and this has proven to be a really good composition, like I said earlier. Damian Lillard, Brandon Roy, Clyde Drexler, Maurice Lucas, and Bill Walton. Sometimes they'll have LaMarcus Aldridge in there. And it's proven to be a good combo, right? And they're bench players with Sabonis, Terry Porter. They've proven to be useful, right? So it's been cool to see. But that's been the Blazers. The Warriors. This is again, I wish a little bit that I was able to get that game in where you were able to see Wilt Chamberlain with 33 points, 23 rebounds, 8 assists, 5 steals, and 6 blocks. Like that was a masterclass of a game by Wilt Chamberlain, but he is the team MVP, even though Steph Curry's been averaging over 30. So honestly, if you wanted to give it to Curry, you could. But I think Wilt Chamberlain has consistently been getting double-digit rebounds, multiple steals, multiple blocks. He's even averaged over 5 assists. He's had 15.6 rebounds and almost 23 points. And I think for an MVP, that he's been a nice addition for them. Basically, this is just what if the Warriors got a center. Like that's basically what it is. And they've proven to be really useful. So Kevin Durant at 19. Um, yeah, I mean that's kind of where they've been at. They've been really been riding off the success of Curry and Wilt, and that's kind of where they've been at. But yeah, been good so far. Then the Wizards, last team, Gilbert Arenas has been the man at 42 points, 2 rebounds, 7 assists. Then you got John Wall at over 20 points. He's been doing well. Again, the Wizards, they're at 3-6. They're trying to gain some momentum. Hopefully they found it. Because they've had some good games. I mean, Elvin Hayes is their best rated player, and he's had a couple good games. He normally takes a back seat when it comes to points, but rebounds hasn't been a problem for him. He had an 18 point, 27 rebound game. So rebounds haven't been a problem for him, but Gilbert Arenas has been their main point of scoring. But yeah, that's kind of what I have here. If you guys have any questions on how this is rolling out, feel free to leave a comment, and yeah, I'll catch you guys later.